Sometimes your brain confuses understanding with healing. It believes that if it can just uncover one more clue, read one more message, find one more explanation, then peace will finally arrive. But true peace doesn't come from finding one more answer. Peace comes from deciding that the investigation is over. The human brain is a remarkable creation. It builds civilizations, writes symphonies, and explores the stars. Yet the very mechanism that makes it powerful also makes it dangerous. Because when your brain encounters a blank space, it rarely accepts uncertainty. Instead, it begins writing a story. Stories about the people around you, stories about the future, stories about yourself. And eventually, those fiction stories become more powerful than reality itself. Join me on a journey into the hidden tricks the mind plays on all of us. Together, we will discover why we worry about things that never happen, and why your brain so easily becomes its own worst enemy. My name is Professor Lionheart, and this is How the Human Brain Tricks Us. The human brain is a marvel of survival. It builds cities, composes symphonies, recognizes a face in a crowd, and navigates dangers the body was never built for. But for all its terrifying power, there is one single thing your brain cannot handle: uncertainty. Your brain absolutely hates a blank space. And when it encounters a gap in information, it does something incredibly dangerous. It doesn't wait for facts. It doesn't search for proof. Instead, it finishes the story itself, using nothing but your imagination. And here is the trap. Your imagination almost never writes a comedy. It writes disaster movies. A friend doesn't text you back. At first, the brain says, maybe they're just busy. But then a darker thought creeps in. Maybe they're upset with me. Then another, maybe they don't like me anymore. And finally, maybe everyone is talking behind my back. Suddenly, from one unread message, your brain has built an entire courtroom case. Yet, nothing has actually happened. There are no facts, only silence. And your mind chose to fill that silence with fear. This is where most human conflict begins, not in reality, but in what we imagined happened. Thousands of years ago, this terrifying habit kept us alive. Picture our ancestors walking through a prehistoric forest. They hear a sudden rustle in the bushes. One ancestor says, "It's probably just the wind." The other says, "What if it's a tiger?" The paranoid ancestor is the one who survives. If they were wrong, they only wasted a little bit of adrenaline. But if they were right, that paranoia saved their life. Your brain evolved to hunt for threats before they even arrive. That design works beautifully against predators. But today, the exact same brain that protected us from ancient beasts is busy creating tigers that do not exist. A vague text becomes a hidden insult. A delayed reply becomes total abandonment. A simple misunderstanding becomes a deep betrayal. But remember, sometimes there is no tiger. Sometimes it is just the wind in the bushes. So, the next time you find yourself spiraling over an unread text, an ambiguous email, or a sudden change in someone's tone, just pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, am I looking at a tiger, or am I just staring at a bush? But the brain's tricks don't stop at just writing fictional stories. Once your mind creates a threat, it transforms into something else entirely. It becomes an obsessive investigator, actively hunting for clues to prove its own worst fears are right. Join me in the next episode where we explore exactly what happens when the brain becomes a detective.